7/17/2024. That is COVID-19 84 by Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms. Another one of the great things to come out of 2020. COVID-19 84 was selected today because Joe Biden has caught it. In fact, he tweeted, "I'm sick." Or whoever controls his tweets said, "I'm sick." So we'll talk about that and much more. I wanted to point out this very prominent piece of predictive programming, a movie called Thine Ears Shall Bleed, which came out on July 9th. So 3 or 4 days before. If you had gone to the theaters, you might have seen this massive, bloody Trump ear on a movie poster. Just another example of what we call here programming, predictive, concurrent. What they're doing is they're saturating your field of vision, your periphery, your frame of reference. They're saturating it with ideas, with images and narratives conducive towards getting you to accept whatever psyop they perform on the world stage. And what we saw the other day, last week now, was a magic trick. Like David Blaine. It wasn't a staged shooting where some innocent got killed. No, the people behind Trump were all participants. It's that big of a psyop. And it's totally achievable if you understand the history of psyops in America and just going back to some of the big ones like 9/11. Imagine what you could do with total control of media and 88 separate mass casualty terror drills going on concurrently. There's nothing you couldn't accomplish with a cast, with crew, directors, and that level of control over a set. You could turn a city, essentially, or city blocks into a closed movie set. And Hollywood does this all the time. It's really no different. All right, phones are open. There's a new number, and it's the old number. The number is 505-510-4226. We're going back to this one because Blog Talk Radio has failed us again. Gremlins chewing through the wires. It just seems like ever since the Trump head wound, which we were expecting and weren't surprised by, I haven't been able to access their phone system. And it's on their end. They say something in the recording that implies we cannot connect at this time. You can call customer service, but no offer of a refund. So I've decided I'm just going to cancel it. In fact, I was doing that right now as we speak. So cancel premium service, done. Another advantage to using this number here is that it takes voicemails. So you can call 24/7 and leave voicemails for on-air play. All right, we are joined by, actually, I see about 33 people in the chat, so it's an open lodge. P. Trippa, consumed by AI, Diana South. Ted Striker 2112 says, "Thank you, Tim, for all you're about. Good to be here." Lando Rock, Diana South, HBIC. Yeah, what I'm about is the think tank and continuing to move this thing forward, and what we're calling here auto hoax accelerationism. And we're going to talk about that today because very soon I'll be having a conversation with another podcaster about the subject of the meaning of predictive programming and what I think it suggests about the nature of media itself. Joined also by Ears Up, Mazel, Portal Complex, Flozik. Thank you for joining. Tom Hughes finally got a notice. Yeah, if you go to ips.monster, sign up, or join at patreon.com/Infinite Plane Society. And for as little as $5 a month, you get archives, live stream notices, and other relevant information delivered right to your inbox. Okay, I believe we have the first caller of the evening. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, dude, what's going on? This is Jurassic. There's a reason why I called.
Oh, by all means, phones are open. Unload.
You remember yesterday I told you that White House correspondent called me and I have not an appointment. She was gonna interview me.
Yes, on the 19th. Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, today. Did you see my video today on that fraud, supposed prophet?
Oh no, I've heard of this guy. I thought he was a fraud. I didn't see your video. What did you have to say about him?
Oh man, I tore into. He's such a fraud, the dude. And So I, so because he was speaking in tongues, he's a complete lunatic, right? And he's made like 1,000 different predictions. You know what I mean? So finally, one of them kind of came true, right? And uh, but anyway, so after that person saw the video, the White House correspondent, because she's a pastor, kind of like a pastor. She she told me, she goes, the interview's canceled.
Oh, come on. That's
Yeah.
funny. Okay, because you challenged this obvious fraud. I'm looking at the thumbnail. He who has ear, let him hear. I don't trust any of these individuals. Where were they 6 months ago, a year ago? Um,
Right.
you've been, yeah.
Yeah, he's a fraud. Listen, every single video is, God showed me this. God said there's gonna be a 10.0 earthquake. God said there's a volcano gonna erupt. I mean, first of all, predicting an earthquake is nonsense because there's an earthquake every day almost. So there's no prediction thing in that. So predicting that Trump is going to get a head wound after everybody's already talking about it, because you just mentioned it only a couple months ago. It,
Okay,
uh,
one more thing here, too. Let's say the thing is staged and fake, like I'm suggesting. I don't think
uh-huh.
God is going to give false information to a prophet and tell him it's going to be a real thing. In other words, God's not participating in the psyop. So I don't think these guys speak for God if what they're saying assumes the reality of what the media is presenting. I don't buy it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so he, so every day he has a different prediction. Every day he has a different. God told me this. God showed me that. I had a vision of this. I mean, his visions are so ridiculous. It's like that McMartin school. You remember that McMartin school where the kids were saying giraffes were brought in and all this other stuff? I don't know if you ever
I
saw
do, yeah,
that.
yeah. I recall they were showing how the interrogation process could get wild claims out of anybody, and it discredited these satanic rituals in the basement stories back then.
Yeah, and so this dude, first of all, saying that Trump is going to get a head wound, when after everybody's already mentioning it, Tucker's mentioning, everybody's mentioning it already. That shows nothing. So predicting that is nothing. So where do usually people get shot? In the head. So that prediction doesn't mean anything either by you saying that. So saying that it's going to miss his head is, I guess that's, kind of a prediction, and him falling to his knees is another prediction. But him saying that he's going to get saved is the most ridiculous prediction, because Trump is a heathen. There's no chance of him being saved. So his whole, there's no that's not a prediction, especially when you're making 1,000 different predictions every day.
And there's something else he didn't predict. He didn't predict that an innocent person would be getting killed in the background. He just focused on Trump. And that's kind of odd. And one more point. You've talked about the connection, and it's in your username, about 6/11, June 11th. And there are some top right wing influencers like Jack Posobiec and Roger Stone, and they're sharing 6/11, just that number, because that was the timestamp they reported he was shot,
Wow.
and that's their verse, "Armor of God," they're always talking about. So 6/11,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a major meme in that arena, in that area right now.
Wow. Yeah, that's so awesome. See what I mean? Because he got shot at 6/11, right? I mean, he got shot at. Anyway, um, but anyway, so I did the video, and the lady canceled the interview.
Well, what a softy. To be honest, what a
Yeah,
softy. That was an
yeah.
opportunity. Really too bad, but what a questionable person being affiliated with the White House Communications Agency. There's some shady people
Right.
there. But
Yeah, yeah. So what else is going on? Anything else you have?
Well, okay, I'm more in line with what you've been saying about how this is some kind of a setup, like they're teeing it off for the big one. Because
Hmm.
you've highlighted Iran before, but one of the points I want to emphasize today is the movie "Thine Ears Shall Bleed" was just released a couple days before, and it looks like Trump's bloodied ear. So they projected the image of the ear already out there, which suggests that this is not the one eye patch head wound, the big one. This is some kind of a. I'm thinking that you might be right on this. Is what I'm saying.
Wow. Yeah. And uh, do you know anything about that movie? Man, I didn't even hear about that until you said it.
All I know is it was released on 7/9, and the title of it looks, well, "Thine Ear Shall Bleed," and it says Don't believe everything you hear. And then it has this
Wow.
bloodied ear. So there's some kind of connotation. And remember when the photographer who photographed Bush having the 9/11 news whispered in his ear, photographed the bullet whizzing by Trump's ear. And they're showing how in the crosshairs it was literally aiming at the 47. And of course, 4547 is 9/11. So you have this perfect connection, but it all is tying into the ear. And some have suggested also Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, Lend Me Your Ears, and the Julius Caesar play is the one where they killed Trump back in 2016. So there's a
Right.
lot of overlapping stuff here, suggesting the ear was a target or some kind of a important step here.
Yeah. And yeah, and they also were talking about the Ohio, police shooting this person right outside the RNC, which I mentioned yesterday, but they were talking about today on the news.
Yes, yes, and there's a few other things that have come up. I think having to do with the place Butler in our Gilded server. There's a lot of great research on it, suggesting that the sheriff from Butler had some. I think he had previously announced something about a terror threat from over the border, and this kind of ties into the theme in Machete, where it was the guy from over the border shooting at the Trump character. But I'm going to go over here in a minute. 11 of the top predictive programming scenarios for this, and one of them has to do with that bloody spot on the foosball table in Fallout, where it had the suggestion of a Kamala Harris-like person taking over, and there's a blood drop on the side of Trump's head. I mean, it's very specific. And then today, Biden suggests that he's sick, so it looks like everything's falling to the next step, the next stage.
Well, I'm gonna listen. I'll listen to your show, and I'll call back if I have something to say. But I'm gonna listen to it right now.
Okay, cool.
What
Well,
you have to say?
all right. Well, thank you for the update, and
All right,
we'll
take
see you in the
care.
chat. Yeah, let's go ahead and go over those. Yeah, this is a new phone number because of the failure of Blog Talk Radio. They kept on having issues on more than one night, and we just can't afford to invest in a company that's not going to be reliable. And moreover, this one takes voicemails, and I believe it's free. So Google Voice. All right, so let's go over these. These are my top 11 Trump shooting predictive programming examples, and this is 11 out of possibly 10,000. Okay, Machete. Again, we talked about this one ad nauseum. I'll probably skip it right now, but basically, even the speech the Trump character is giving relates to the speech Trump was giving, having to do with illegal immigrants. Fallout. Yet Betty Pearson, who I believe represents Kamala Harris, rigs the election to be the overseer of Vault 33. After cleaning up the massacre, there's one drop of blood she missed on the side of the foosball Trump. And when I saw that, and we can go back in Minds and see it, I said, because someone asked me, do I think that Michelle Obama is going to be president? I'm like, no. Based on Fallout, a Nolan production, the Nolan brothers are deep in the predictive programming arena. I would say that no, it's Kamala Harris after Trump has the blood on the right side of his head. A man in full, Charlie Coker's Trump, dies as the end result of the machinations of an upcoming mayor who represents President Obama. Number 4, Leave the World Behind, an Obama production, excuse me. An Obama production which was released on 11/22 and takes place in a zip code containing 1963. Infinite Plane Radio.
Yes, sir. This is Tommy King calling back.
Hey, what's up, Tommy King? Thank you for calling last night. That was a very interesting exchange. And what's on your mind?
Sure, for sure. Well, can we talk about one second? Why do you keep saying Nolan Brothers?
Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan, Oppenheimer and
Who's
Fallout.
Jonathan Nolan?
Jonathan Nolan's the one who did Westworld and Fallout. Christopher Nolan does Batman and Oppenheimer. And there's another one. The other
Yeah.
Nolan, I think his name is Matthew or something. I have to double check. But the other Nolan was a hitman whose code name was Oppenheimer.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. And I do apologize for your show's going. I just jumped in now. So you're gonna tell me you're hitting me with, because I'm a movie dork. Like I can spin with movies all day. You're gonna tell me. I do remember Nolan being on the Westworld season 1 when I'm like looking at that horse turn in with the threads and whatnot. Maybe there's a Nolan name. I gotta recheck, but I'm having a tough time believing you with the Nolan brothers. Are we sure? Because the way you say you have the confidence as like it's the Wachowski sisters.
Yeah, yeah. Here we go. The third Nolan
Okay, we
brother.
have 100% confirmation.
Here's the
Go ahead.
confirmation. Matthew Nolan
Okay.
is the third one. The sordid past. This is from the How Stuff Works. Of the third Nolan
Okay.
brother. Matthew Nolan, born in 1968. You may know Christopher Nolan has a brother named Jonathan, who's also co-written films like The Memento. But the third Nolan brother was a hitman with the code name Oppenheimer. So yes, three of
No
them. Three of them.
way. Okay. Where do we get the source of the hitman part? No, and before we get any deeper, I'm with you with Christopher Nolan. Okay. Now I know Christopher Nolan wrote Memento, and I know that movie is super old. And so you're telling me the other Nolan co-wrote it with him, or one was the director, one was the writer?
Um, on that one in particular, I think one he was the one was a co-writer, but Jonathan Nolan's behind Fallout, and I believe Westworld.
Okay, and is Fallout the new Kevin Hart video game remake movie, or am I like
Fall,
getting glitched
well,
on
yeah, Fallout is the one with the America far
Oh,
in the
the Amazon
future.
TV show.
Yeah,
Amazon
after
TV show.
yes,
Amazon TV show.
Amazon exactly.
Okay, and Borderlands. I'm thinking of Borderlands.
Oh, Borderlands.
So
I can
there's a new movie
yes.
coming out called Borderlands. That's a video game movie,
Oh, cool. Is it
and
another
that's
nuclear?
Eli Roth.
Okay, and this is another
Yep,
Fallout
yeah,
one. Oh
yeah,
my, another one. You know what
yes.
this is,
But
right?
it's directed by Eli Roth. It's directed by Eli Roth. And if you look back on the Eli Roth, he shouldn't make a almost a PG-13 video game movie. Eli Roth should only make hard R, explicit gore porn. How Eli Roth came to the game is in movies, is through gore porn.
Oh, like
If
Hostel, and
yes,
Jigs. Is
gore
he? Yeah,
porn,
yeah.
yes.
Hostel was shocking.
Eli Roth is Cabin Fever. Eli Roth is fucking goddamn it. He had a trilogy. He had a big Eli Roth is actually
Now
very
he's
good.
not Jigsaw, is he?
Um no, he's not. He's before Jigsaw. His first Eli Roth's first big movie was Cabin Fever. He wrote Cabin Fever. I'm pretty sure. If you're typing, check my nerd status out to make sure I'm not, because I hate coming on here and I'm spitting it from the porch
Okay, well,
too.
Jigsaw,
So
for everyone's
Eli
reference
Roth.
here, was the Spierig brothers,
Mhm.
not Eli Roth, the Jigsaw series. But no, Eli Roth
Yep.
did a number of. He did Cabin
His
Fever,
first movie.
right?
His first movie should have been Cabin Fever. Then he went on from that to do Hostel, and then he didn't do Hostel 3 though, I don't think. And then they paid him to make the Jack Black movie. The
I thought
host of
Hostel had intimations of initiation rites for like the
Hostel's
Skull and
traffic.
Bones.
Yeah, for
Did
sure. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yep. The Bulldog. Yeah, he had a Bulldog cult in that movie. First time I'd ever saw it, way before I was a conspiracy theorist.
but
Very
anyway,
true.
but anyway,
Very true.
the Nolan
No, okay,
brothers
go
have a
ahead.
third brother, and it's alleged that his code name was Oppenheimer as a hitman, and that's kind of like
That's crazy. What part of the country? What part of the country, if you don't mind me asking?
um, I haven't dug too deep into him. I just saw the
Okay.
name Matthew Nolan, and I followed up on the rumor, and
What?
I checked Snopes and Newsweek,
Okay.
and I says here I don't
You
know if
didn't
I
check
don't.
Kiwi Farms? You didn't check Reddit or Kiwi Farms, Tim?
No, I try not to. I don't check Reddit. Every time you go to Reddit, you become 1% more Antifa. Every time you go on,
Is it?
oh yeah, you go on TikTok, you become 17% more
Where do I
anti-Semitic.
go now? Because I feel, yeah, because I gotta one. I don't mind the anti-Semitism. I don't mind. I love actually all the race. Oh, gosh, and I don't
Have
want to
you
say
heard
any wrong
Nicholas?
words.
No,
So
I'm
you want
sorry.
to
I'm
get me
sorry.
out.
Nick Fuentes
Go
and
ahead.
these others,
Go ahead.
like they've all jumped the shark and they're eating each other. It's pretty funny. at this
What are
point.
they doing?
Well, okay, Nick Fuentes.
These white boys are losing it. The white boys are losing it.
Well, it's not that he. That's the whole point. Is that he's not. He's. And I don't even care to get into this stuff,
Okay,
but
but is he? No, okay,
he's
so hold
LARPing
on.
as a white nationalist. He's LARPing, and
Sure.
look at who led
The-
Proud Boys. It was like there's never
Gavin, wasn't it Gavin? Gavin McGinnis with that
he's
stupid mustache. Isn't that who led it?
he started it, and yeah, he's a comedian.
Okay. And now, how many beards do you see around town? Like in your town? I live in North Dakota, so I see beards
The town
in
of
these.
North Dakota, beards, as in describe a beard, and
A beard is having a thick mustache with a goatee, at least, like a thick goatee with a thick mustache.
I'm not the person to ask.
And now
I live in a 1 minute city. I don't have to go very. I don't
I
see very
live in
many
a
people. I see the same people every day.
yeah, sure. But at the same time, are you gonna tell me we don't? Can you not tell? How can I do this without you wanting to pull the plug on me? Like I want to talk to you as long as we can, and you probably have plenty of colors, and so
Well,
I don't want to.
we want to focus on the
Yes, where do
breakdown
we want
of
to
the
focus?
world stage imposition that has turned mankind into a collectively manipulatable robot. We're basically a
The
hive
same, yeah,
mind, right?
exactly, the same thing,
A Borg.
exactly. And then, so I saw today because I do put on. Obviously, you know what I'm about to say. Have you ever heard of a show called Steel Toe Morning Show?
No, I have
Have
not
you
heard of
heard
it.
of the Steel Toe?
No,
You lying son of a
steel. You
gun,
said
Tim.
steel toe? No, never. I have not heard of this.
Tim, me and you have been through a lot of flat Earth truths and whatnot, brother. You cannot
wait.
tell me you don't know what I'm talking
Wait,
about.
repeat the name of the show one more time.
Steel Toe. Don't see it now. I feel like you're coaxing me, but I'll walk you. I'll walk you. I'll let you walk me. Steel Toe Morning Show. It's these white dudes from Minnesota, or the white guy from Minnesota, and he has the Nick Ricada fucking coke conspiracy on his side. It's that guy.
Okay, I might be sleeping in too late to catch it, but I'll try to catch the Steel Toe Morning Show tomorrow. I'll get up early.
Oh my gosh, Tim! When you do this, you realize it hurts my heart because I feel like you're joking with me, and I thought we had a better relationship.
No, I really will. I really will. I just don't know what it is, and I feel like I'm walking
No,
into a trap.
I don't want you to listen.
I feel like I'm walking into a
No,
trap. I don't want to endorse
I
something
feel like
crazy.
I'm walking. Exactly. And you just made me call it out. But at the same time, I guess it's out. And we'll see what chat says. Good Lord. So we live our lives. Oh my gosh, I have a golf cart coming through my yard.
Do you live in
Hold
front
up,
of a
real
golf
quick.
course?
No,
Must be nice.
golf courses. Shut the fuck. What are you doing, bud? Oh, driving? That was your answer? It was actually a badass answer. I can't even hate on that. This is my neighbor kid. Can't even be mad at him. No, I don't live on a golf cart. There's a golf course in my town. I live in Mapleton, North Dakota. Mapleton Golf
Well, look.
Courses.
Okay. Well, we have
That's
to
what I
get
should say.
to get back
Go
on the
ahead. Go
subject
ahead.
here. You mentioned the
Yep,
other day
let's
that
do
it
it.
seemed
Let's
like in Normieville, as you walked around, nobody even noticed
do it.
that Trump got his ear pierced by an AR-15. Is that still true? Has
No,
anybody?
I
Is there a
live in a place,
buzz? Is there a buzz?
brother. I live in a place where it's all there is to talk about. And see, what it was I'm the only minority home haver that has a construction job. So I'm a blue collar worker guy. And when all this conspiracy stuff happened, like in my neighborhood, my house doesn't get. This is actually probably triggering whoever does all bullshit like swattings, but I have no problem in my Cass County. But I can say I live in a place where it's known we're local, small town individuals. Everybody has their defenses, and you don't.
So you got like a 50 cal on your bedroom balcony window?
Me,
Yeah.
buddy, have you seen Training Day?
Okay, it's like that. Well,
Yeah,
Okay, so
well, it's easier. It's easier if you look like a guy like me, and then you like walk around like you're Vin Diesel from Fast and Furious, or whatever his name is in Training Day.
but I guess my question was,
What?
do you
Go
gather
ahead. Go
that
ahead.
were there any ripples from this event? Was this event a 9/11
No,
scale
it's
event?
all. It's super. It's T2. What should? Boom. We just had a. There's a monster truck revving its engines right now up the
Very nice.
road.
Well, hey, look, I'm
I live in
definitely
T2. I live in T2, meaning Trump number two. He's coming back. No one thinks it's not. Am I wrong?
uh probably not, probably not. But I guess what I'm
Okay, and you're wanting to kick me off. You're wanting to kick me off, and I know.
well, that's
Go
because
ahead.
we're down to 42 minutes, and we want to get through the 13 top predictive programming lead ups to the Trump head wound that we used as a predictive basis. The spoiler alerts that we've been discussing to show people that the media is not what they think it is. Appreciate the call. I have another caller coming in. We're testing out a new phone system. Appreciate the call, Tommy. Didn't mean to hang up on you, but I had to swap out callers. Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. Thank you for calling. We're testing out the new system, and it has a pretty good way of moving from call to call.
Uh, I see that. Absolutely. I just want to say that, you know, that this, in my opinion, like the first thing I noticed was the reverse 9/11. So this happened at 6/11. Okay.
Yep,
So,
yep.
and that was my first initial red flag was that, and then after that was just how theatrical it was. Okay. So I'm trying to base this off of a very surface level assessment of, I don't want to dig too deep, but this theatrics that I witnessed, and it seemed like I don't know if you've ever been to like a theme park or a Disney or like a Universal Studios, but it seemed to me like specifically like the SWAT people, the people who had like the more militaristic type uniforms with the helmets and stuff, the guys who ran up on the stage after the shot was fired. Those people seemed very like very rehearsed and theatrical, but it didn't seem like a real military response or a real, you know what I mean? It seemed
Agreed.
very. So I was like, that's very weird. And then the fact that he wanted to, say all that stuff and like he wanted to sit on the stage. Okay, so in my opinion, right, I'm not a professional, but if the Secret Service were to recognize a threat to the president or former president, I think they would just like tackle him off stage and not allow him even to because he was saying stuff. He was saying stop, stop, stop. You know,
He's like, "Give
so
me my shoes. Where's my shoes?" Yeah, this is not a
yeah,
life-threatening situation if they're allowing him to pose for a photo that perfectly aligns with the cover of Braveheart, and then with all of these actors or whatever they are, these Secret Service agents doing their Three Stooges routine, they gather around him and they lean over and they perfectly model the Marine monument where the soldiers are raising the flag. I mean, this is iconic photography being created real time.
yes, I agree with that, and I think there's like, see, this is the thing I think about the situation, and there's another YouTuber, I'm not going to name the YouTuber, but brought this point up. It was like this is you know how they said like 3D chess and stuff, like
Yes.
he was talking about how like now it's like he was just joking about it in a sense. He's like now it's like 12D chess where they're like, so he doesn't he made a good point saying that like and he actually, it was weird actually because he brought up auto hoax, so I'm pretty sure he knows about IPS, and this is a pretty big YouTuber, but yeah, I was like, okay, it's pretty crazy. So he's seeing that like the game and the whole narrative could be 10 steps ahead rather than like, oh, this is a psyop. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a fake. Maybe it's a fake on purpose. And then deeper than that, twice. You know what I'm saying? To just confuse and obfuscate that much further. To where it's like you don't even know what true is or what false is,
Yeah, for example,
until
yeah, I've
things happen.
seen man on the street interviews, and people are saying it's staged. But when you dig further, well, what do they mean by staged? Because their word staged doesn't apply here. The definitions, and they don't have the words to describe what they're saying. And so it'd be more accurate to say a propaganda or a psychological operation or a PR stunt. But the problem with that is that it's not
Sure.
even like Trump's team is psyoping the Democrats. No, it's at the very top. There's some uniform agreement that this is going to be done on everyone collectively. So it opens this can of worms, and that I don't think the normie perspective can account for how big of a liar the system is. It's like they can see a fake tree and they don't recognize the whole forest is fake.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the whole, that, I mean, once you first start breaking your mold of what you think, how everything is run or whatever, and first start getting into these type of topics, then you start to like expand that framework, expand that foundation of like what it is, reality is. So, people who are aware of these type of things, these psyops, et cetera, these people are decades ahead of us already. So it's like these dripples of information that we get in this theater that we witness to like fool the average person, because that's what it is. They don't care about people like us, because they don't care if you figure it out. Because just like the movies, okay, well, all these people love movies. The average person likes a certain movie stuff that these people have crafted. Hollywood's crafted a certain type of movie and a certain language, a certain cadence, all these things have been studied like in detail by Hollywood. So it's like, they understand how to tweak the emotions, so we know this stuff, right? There's a small percentage of population that understands that there's a trickery to it, but 80% go along with it,
Yeah, I think you're right. I've been lately, and I don't think it's an oversimplification to say that the masses, that the collective mind is in the programmed box, and the programmers are a minority, and there's different levels of awareness or security clearance in that group. And then we, the deprogrammed, are such a small minority that we're not even a sizable fraction of Trutherville. So they don't care that we notice. That they don't care. But perhaps they do. Maybe they're doing some damage control. They don't. But I certainly think they don't want auto hoaxing to scale up. So when I hear of a bigger channel using that word, I'm glad, because the reason why the normie can see something's fake but they can't describe it accurately, they can say it's staged but then they can't make it make sense. They don't have the lexicon to make it make sense, because they'll say, well, if that was staged,
Absolutely.
somebody died. How does that make sense? It's like, yep, they don't have the lexicon, and we have the framework and the lexicon.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I've heard a lot of YouTubers describe this, right? Because I've watched a lot of people. It's funny to see who questions it and who doesn't. Like they pin this narrative to where it's like the left is questioning the event, saying it's a theater. It's kind of taking this conspiratorial stance on it.
Right,
At the same
right.
time, they were the same people who were admonishing people who were questioning deeper during COVID, et cetera. Whenever it went, but it's just human psychology. They play us because, even on the right, there are people like that. Once you attack the framework of a person, you know, then you start to get these visceral responses to where it's like, okay, I just deny you, right? So you go against my agenda, but what I believe is going to shake me to my core, so I cannot accept that. So now you're going to be the enemy to me. So like, people like us who question, and people who listen to this channel who question deeper, it's very, I don't know, it
It's
goes back to COVID.
you made a point here, though, that it's funny how there's been this reversal. Well, now it's the left wing finally being conspiracy theorists about a shooting. And a lot of them are saying,
Yeah,
why is Trump wearing that ear badge? It's so unnecessary. And there are so many memes going around of lefty types wearing big masks and face diapers, and they're captioning it, Trump's ear badge was so unnecessary. There's been
yeah.
this total
Well,
flip.
all right. So here, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to cover a few different topics because okay. So what do you think about the whole like biblical aspect of it? How this whole Antichrist narrative about how like the wound on the head and the miraculous healing and all these things about the Antichrist description, and that was one thing to me that, and okay, so it go back, in my opinion, it could go to like a Project Bluebeam type narrative to where they're like constructing this to where it's like that, because okay, so about 20 years ago, maybe before this, around Reagan, even they were doing these type of things, but they started to, internal documents of the government would target like conservatives and say, hey, people who believe in Christ and Christians, they're the new extremists. basically, right?
Yeah, the
So let's
MAGA
go with
ban.
that.
The MAGA ban, the
Yeah.
domestic equivalent of radical
So
Islam, they've created it.
what if that's a psyop? Like, I think that what if Trump is like the psyop? So they're playing this theater to where, okay, he's got the characteristics of like a messiah, right? But he really could be like the Antichrist in some respect. I don't know, because and now you see
Look,
that Iran's
there's
trying to tie Iran, all these things, trying to
there's
tie all
multiple
these
levels.
things that are biblical.
There's multiple levels, and there is the biblical metascript. I'm glad you brought it up because we have all kinds of examples of Trump being portrayed as an, even devil's advocate. The penthouse or the devil state was in Trump's office. I can point to, like right now tonight, I'm going over 11 predictive programming instances for Trump, the politician, being shot. But I could find just as many examples of predictive programming where Trump is showing up as the Antichrist, and he's foreshadowed in characters, even the Terminator,
Well,
even
isn't the Antichrist the ultimate master of charisma? He's favored by people. It doesn't mean the whole world loves him, but it means that there's a fanaticism about him that is revered by people.
And
So
yes,
maybe
yes,
just,
there is that. And
so
for a long
and now
time,
you see,
this
I'm
is
sorry,
actually.
sorry, but
Go
DJ
ahead.
Academics, he's a very famous YouTuber and vlogger, but he is a streamer actually, but he's kind of, if you pay attention to his channel, his Instagram, he's kind of pushing this narrative that Trump is like, you know, a good guy, and like he's like, oh, you know what I'm saying, like, so it's like now you're seeing the whole like social narrative turn to actually favor Trump. So it's like,
Hmm.
I'm not the most religious person or not pushing that narrative, but it's interesting to me that they're, even if it was a fake or some type of fakery, right, a plan, they're drawing these narratives and constructing these things to have him associated to it, right?
Well, for example, the last color I brought up 611. The timestamp 611, I connected that to the general MAGA band number. That's Timothy McVeigh's execution date. It's the inverted 911. But this is shared now as a meme. Right now, as we speak, Roger Stone, Jack Posobiec are sharing 611 with no context, so people look it up and find Ephesians 611, the armor of God, and they've been planting the seeds for that
Yeah.
number to trigger these people since last year's Sound of Freedom with Tim Ballard, where the whole movie's about how he helps this kid who's being trafficked, and the kid gives him this Catholic necklace with Tim 611. I'm like, what? Timothy McVeigh? What is Tim 611? And they connected it to Ephesians 611 as well, armor of God, with Trump. So, no, they've engineered a biblical template where he's Christ, but simultaneously, there's plenty of scripting where he's also the Antichrist. So it's kind of fascinating because you can't be both.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So it's like that makes me, in my opinion, I think it's all synthetic because for one, it's just like you look at it, right? You look at the event that happened, clearly like theatrical, clearly a staged, event. It's I mean, just logistically, like if you think about it logically, I mean, I'm not even trying to say it to be like facetious or anything or pompous, but like if you look at this, it just doesn't make sense. Like, so it's like, did they intentionally leave these breadcrumbs, right, to have
Look,
us
everything
guess,
you're
you know what I
saying,
mean?
a lot of people, even like, okay, Joe Rogan, there's this clip I heard of him today where he's saying that the likelihood of all of this playing out, he says, it's like a freaking movie or in the Matrix. Like that he's confronting how it just doesn't seem real. And to me, it's real in the WWE sense. It's a
Well,
theatrical
yes,
production
Trump's
and
the actor,
pageantry.
just like Reagan. Reagan is the actor. All the very, I mean, not all of them, but most of these presidents who like in recent history had some affiliation. Like Reagan was a revered president, right, for his whatever he did, right. People love Reagan for some reason. Bipartisan. People have good thoughts about Reagan, but at the same time, he's an actor. He's put in place. He's put in position. So, and you think Trump is different? Like
Well,
at the same time, it's like, okay, he has this narrative planted about him where it's like he questioned 9/11 immediately. All these
in
things
many ways,
that
Trump is rhyming with Reagan. Make America Great was Reagan. Make America Great Again. Ronald Reagan kicked off his campaign using one of Trump's planes, and then you have the Star Wars combined, and then Space Force. Both of them being shot, and there are connections that we're finding between the Reagan shooting and this present shooting. And it has to do with Robert De Niro, who is ranting outside of the Trump trial saying Trump needs to be stopped. So we're finding that not only is this scripted, but it's a continuous script, multi generational, and they're all in on the act. Provably.
yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and they all tie together in some respect because they have to weave the narrative. right? It has to all be cohesive. So, it, and the whole, in my opinion, the whole next agenda is to erase. That's why you have like President Biden, right now, because his job is to denigrate the position of America, right? To denigrate the position and the authority of the presidency, right? So, and in contrast to that, you had a president right before that, even and before that, like Obama was a very articulate president. He's just, allegedly, like all these things about him were manufactured and presented just like Trump as well. But, he at least demonstrated that, right? Trump is he has good, I guess, like decent policies that like America benefits from, right? Allegedly. But at the same time, he's very arrogant. He has all these like social qualities that are very, not triggering, but they're inflammatory. He's very, so he doesn't help the situation, right? He's like an instigator. So I don't think he's good either. So
Well,
it's funny how they utilize these
yes.
people to just,
Uh, I heard him
kick
referred
the ball
to
along.
as a heel because the other day someone had brought up how there is this thing in wrestling where they use little razors and they gouge their forehead or they cut themselves so the blood mixes with the sweat and it drips down and looks dramatic. It's an old tactic. And Trump is a World Wrestling Entertainment Hall of Famer. And I know someone who worked for the WWE in the stage in the crew area for some time. And the consensus among them was that Trump was a quote heel from the very beginning, meaning he would be fed lines to antagonize target demographics. And he's been that this entire time. And in 2020, that's when I picked up on how scripted it was, because he was using lines that were right out of 1968 by segregationists. And I was like, there's no way Trump would be repeating this stuff. Somebody's feeding him lines and he has no idea the historical significance of these particular lines and how inflammatory they are. And I started noticing, okay, they've templated the summer of 2020 off of the chaos of 1967 and 68.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you had the whole like what was it? I mean, they call it like the summer of love. Like people ironically call it that, but it was just like the whole COVID summer, all the riots, all these things. So it's like these things were they were just putting it in front of our faces, giving us ammunition to nibble on, right? To be angry.
Yes,
And making all these
yes.
parallels.
And do you
So
recall the summer of love, right? They were calling 2020 the summer of love. And before
yeah,
the summer ended, a white car cut through a line of protesters and killed someone named Summer and someone called Love. It was Summer Taylor and Diaz Love. Totally
interesting.
fake. But I was like, oh, they just killed the Summer of Love right after, I think it was Nancy Pelosi dubbed it the Summer of Love.
Yeah. So you see what it's in my opinion it's some type of like alchemic magic that they're doing with these things, these terms they're using. It just because an idea is a thought is a reality. So it's like if they can implant even the narrative by words, it's the sorcery, right? So
Yeah.
like in my opinion, Trump is not doing anything good for us. He's not doing anything, to benefit us. He's literally, in my opinion, from my initial thought of Trump was that he's, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, there's no way this is gonna happen. It really happened. Okay, he was president for 4 years. Then they utilized him to distract from. Think about just what we could have in the vacuum of his existence, right? If he was not the center focus, what things could we have focused on that could have benefited us? What things how many resources were utilized to like investigate him that could have been used to something positive, right? That's the whole point of him, is to waste resources and to waste attention and get people upset. He's literally just like not like some type of Trojan horse variant. Like he's just used to gather energy and just waste energy and just
Trump
suck up all
is,
the stuff.
he's the destroyer. He's the iceberg that sinks the
Exactly.
Titanic. He's the planet killer asteroid. He's the Terminator. He's the nuke. If you look at the meta script, Trump is Abaddon, Apollyon, the destroyer in the abyss, looking over the wreckage of 9/11. There's all kinds of symbolism in all these psyops where Trump is, yeah, he's a man, a TV star playing a role, but no, the role he's playing is a historic personage with all kinds of stories attached to it. And they
Yeah.
created this because they manufacture our history, and he's one of history's important characters. And so he's been imbued with all these qualities and characteristics so that psychically subconsciously we have all these associations built on him. And he is Christ, he's the Antichrist, he's Biff Tannen. There's all kinds of things that we're seeing with many characters. Like, I often talk about how they create composites out of people like Elon Musk. But yes, he is
Yeah.
definitely an
Well,
engineered walking
it's more of
psyop.
an idea. It's more of an idea because they know this. That's why, because okay, so no one can live forever, right? So they have to utilize the idea of a person or the visage or the glyph, these small tidbits that associate to an ideal, right? Like a John Wayne, right? A John Wayne has been, how long has he been dead? A long time, but he's still an archetype, right? That people reference. There's a whole industry built on him. You know, people make money off his name still. So it's like
Yeah, yeah.
they
Alex
understand the power.
Jones just called him. He said Alex Jones said Donald Trump is John Wayne, and yeah, there's a power
Oh,
in that.
weird. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he said it yesterday. Just side note.
Yeah, and he the craziest part about Alex Jones too, not to digress, but Alex Jones is literally like, you know, the total bait and switch because he got the people right into the conspiracies, right? Showed them this maybe like 80% truth information. This other 20%, you know, right when Trump started running, he's like, oh, Trump's the savior, he's the messiah. So he's fueled this whole like MAGA thing on the Q level to where it's like the super far right. They know more about Alex Jones and they might listen to Alex Jones. So they've isolated. In my opinion, Trump is just utilized to isolate people in pockets, in identifiable pockets of people to where they can control them easily. So it's like, okay, yeah, you're into MAGA. Okay, we know exactly how you tick, because you know what I mean. We've constructed how you tick. We've been doing this, like, so
You
that,
know what?
you know,
Okay,
if
I
you
know
can
you're
control
right.
the enemy, it's
Like,
easy.
he may as well be. He's like an effigy. He's a construct as much as he's a person. Because one of the examples of predictive programming for the shooting is the movie Machete, where Robert De Niro is playing a racist, xenophobic senator, and he's shot while he's giving a campaign speech. And this thing is, he's giving his anti-immigrant speech that mirrors Trump's speech. But the thing is, 2010 is before Trump ever hit the world stage as a politician. He had talked about politics here and there, but so the character that Trump is playing pre-exists him. Like, this is a role he's playing, if you ask me, and that's a huge clue. It's a huge clue that a movie 8 years before Trump was even conceived to be in that role, they were foreshadowing him.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen the clip of Oprah when he was the Oprah show and it's in the '90s, and he was talking about like Oprah even was prefacing and giving these things, asking him, hey, would you ever run for president? He's like, oh, I don't think I'd ever run for president, not unless this or this happens. But, you know, but leaving it open ended. You know, so this is on national television, and this is in I say the late '90s
Yeah,
or
he
mid
he
'90s.
was 33 at the time. I remember that clip.
Okay, so there you go. And you know, he has the Jesuit connection. He went to a Jesuit school. He's, you know, all the people who, and that's this messianic, you know, archetype that is being built around him is what is going to bring the chaos, right? Because and people keep saying it today. They're all saying, oh yeah, if it was a millimeter to the right, the whole world would be different. Well, yeah, because all the MAGA fanatics will be in the streets and blood will be shed now because you've led a people into this emotional modulation over a decade almost now, and now it's come to a boiling point.
The story's out there.
So
One of Alex
their
Jones's guests,
Messiah is, you know what I mean? What do you think is going to happen
they've already
after
said
that?
this. They
You know?
planted the seeds. They said, Alex Jones said,
So I think Trump is not. They don't care if he lives or dies. That does not matter. They might get rid of him. It's
well,
okay, but or they
I've
might
heard
keep him and let him bring in the whole devastation.
I've
Like
heard some saying it would be a good thing
chaos
if it
agent.
happened because we could retaliate against targeted deep state persons. So, in other words,
Well, yeah, but what does that bring though? What does that bring? That brings total lawlessness and chaos.
right,
Because now you have these other people, and this is another thing too. All these people on the right, you know, they think that, oh yeah, we have the answers. No, you don't, because what you're trying to do is they've already designed your paradigm too. So it's like these people want to control other people in a sense. They don't want you to be free. They want to micromanage everything. So they've brought us to these two extremes. So it's like, okay, you think these people no, they're going to steal from you as well, right? They're going to usurp power just like the other people did. You think just because they're, you know what I mean? The same people who are going to take over power when chaos happens are the same people who are going to usurp power. These
Yes.
principles and archetypes don't change,
I was
right?
looking, yeah, for example, in 2020, we saw the people were outraged because of the looting. But the first quarter, Jeff Bezos had raked in 33 billion. And I was like, well, who's looting more? And and interestingly though, I've been studying the character of Jeff Bezos, the way we describe Trump as Antichrist. Bezos is heavily templated as Nimrod, the builder of the Tower of Babel, and he's one of the space agency guys as well. But he's deeply this is a huge part of Bezos's character, and I think that the character Nimrod was one of the first to build a new civilization after the flood. So there's this storyline here that yeah, that the I guess what we're looking at here is um, sort of a flood of information, a flood of a saturation on the world stage right now with information wise, where I think they're consolidating power by consolidating the mind control, consolidating worldview. And the Tower of Babel to
Yeah,
me is that one world
absolutely.
agreement.
I mean, and this could be a cycle. How many times over do you think this could have happened? Like, if the world is infinite, let's say the world isn't, these millions of years, let's say we've been here, right? Let's say these civilizations in the past are just resets and somehow a person or, we rebuild society, right? Maybe these periods have happened, right? So maybe that's why we have these archetypes of these people in the past who do certain things, fulfill roles, because on this path, we just have this infinite plane, right? Infinite plane society that is just existence forever. It's like time is ultimate determinant, right? Time is infinite. If time is infinite, that means that, you know, this world could be destroyed over and over. And maybe there have been apocalypse before. And we just keep surviving because this is how it is. I don't know. But in some level, they are fulfilling these type of archetypes, but it's designed to a level, right?
Yeah, well, look,
It,
this is
it has
another
to be.
example of we have to. I think we all concur, but we look at stuff like this. This is not a coincidence. We have to accept that this is indications of prediction, or rather, foreshadowing on the script that becomes our history. This is an Economist cover. The weaker sex, no job, no family, no prospects. This is during Obama's reign, before Trump and the MAGA movement, and it has what looks like a MAGA guy with a red hat inside of a Q. This is way before Q.
Interesting.
The explanation? It's the male sign. Because, of course, toxic masculinity is being brought down. So he's a dejected male, no job, no family, no prospects. So this is the death of MAGA, before
Yeah,
MAGA
I mean
existed.
what a lot of these MAGA people are, this red pill movement. What do you think the red pill is synonymous with the red hat? All these things are tied together. So you have this red pill movement, all these complete incels, right? Who don't know how to talk with women, how to engage with women, because it's all by design. Because everything we've been geared to watch is making us repulsed by each other. It's on purpose.
It is.
All this is on purpose.
They've
They
instituted
want to reduce
the.
population.
Yeah.
It's a full saturation. So, like you just said, this full saturation. That's why people like going back to the Trump thing. This assassination thing. There's not one way you can look at it because you really think that's it. So the conclusions that we all came to, you don't think there's another layer, right? That someone's not aware of. No, there is. That's the whole point. So like, it's just wild to me but all of this is coming to like some type of confluence. So what do you think is the conclusion, right? Because Biden is a complete, in my opinion, but it's like I said, he's in position to denigrate the position of authority of America, right? Because this whole New World Order, the globalist movement, wants to get rid of that. So you can't have that with a strong, prominent country, right? So you have to get rid of that. And
Yeah,
then
I
there's
think there was a symbol of it, a symbol of a representative of an older order. So you have an aging white man dying in front of us, and I think it's emblematic. And then you look at the recent movies where in Civil War they kill a Trump character, and they emphasize that it has to be a black woman to do it. The movie I referenced, Fallout, where it has the blood on the right side of the Trump figurine. Betty Pearson is like Kamala Harris stand-in, if you ask me, who rigs the election and takes over Vault 33. And I can name half a dozen Netflix shows like DMZ, Demilitarized Zone, where we're being conditioned for Kamala Harris. If you just go by the predictive programming, so that's where I
yeah.
form
What
my
that's
basis.
the crazy part. They're already discussing it. I was literally just watching some news. I think it was like MSNBC or Fox, right? And it just came up after I was watching something on YouTube. It just pulled up, but they were talking about that. They're talking about how there are already people right now calling for Biden to like step down, right? Like now, and after the whole assassination attempt is really just like beefed up. So what, what it's so difficult to say, and I think that's like the whole point is they want us to have this theater to this ultimate like focal point,
Well, as long
which
as
is
we're
like, but
discussing the details and the nuance and trying to figure it out, we're talking as though it's assumed to be true and random and not scripted. And this is exactly where they want us. Truth or chicken feed, multiple shooter stories. People are getting all kinds of distracted with all these purposefully planted misdirection narratives. But they've certainly set the stage with this COVID thing for Biden stepping down, and there are indications that the Secret Service errors or their malfeasance or whatever you want to call it is going to be put at Biden's feet and could be a potent political weapon against him. So they're also thinking,
well, yeah,
let's take
that's
Biden
that's
out.
another narrative that hasn't even been talked about yet. Like, what if it could be proven that somehow there was like a hit done, right? So now there's this whole like there are some people talking about that right now. So this whole thing goes in like 20 different directions, and it's like wherever you take it, there's like you said, like malfeasance or negligence, right? But it's like how far does that go? So if it can be proved that it goes to the highest levels, what does that say, and what are the implications after that? And now we have an election coming up, so it's like all these. It's so messy.
It is interesting times, and you know what? One Eye Jacket pointed out that he's glad this happened because it was getting kind of boring, and me too. I'm like, okay, well, let's organize a mass space station sighting because there's nothing to do. Let's just start attacking the infrastructure of the Lie World Order, and now we get this. They just totally it's a domino, and
Oh, I want to say one more thing too. I think about 5 days ago, maybe six, within the last week, I was watching Trump. You could look it up. There was Trump did an interview with it was like there's some economic people. He's very very rich. He's a billionaire, and I think he's Indian, but he's a big crypto guy. But he interviewed Trump. They did like a Zoom thing or whatever. But they were talking about how Trump said that he would release the John F. Kennedy files, right? And he said that there were some people that like during his presidency said, hey, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't do that. So he didn't do it. But then he said if he gets elected again, he's going to do it. And then, now look what happens. So, and you can look it up if you like. It's on the internet. But you just look it up on YouTube. But
okay.
and that was literally within like the past week. So he was already proof he can't lead this association to Kennedy. And he talked about that releasing the files. And then within that week, he just has that 25 minutes left, right?
That's not a
So
coincidence. Not a coincidence. That yeah, the ghost of JFK has been haunting us since 2020 or 2018, since QAnon has repopularized him. Every Sunday, there's Kennedy Sunday. You can find the hashtag where the QAnoners are literally worshiping the Kennedy family, and so they've kept this Kennedy Trump association alive for some time. And I thought, what's more likely, that Kennedy's going to come back, or this is overtly coupling the sacrifice of JFK with the incoming head wound of Trump. So I figured this is just pre-selling us on Trump as JFK, and I coined the phrase JFKification of Donald Trump.
yeah, because I mean, either way you take it, like something does happen.
One thing, caller, sounds like your phone. We're about to hit 33 minutes on the call. Your phone's sounding very robot-y at the moment. So if you want to call back, go ahead. But
Weird.
appreciate the call very much, though. It's a little, yeah, it's kind of auto-tuned. But
Can you hear
anyway,
me right now?
yeah, we can hear you, but it's breaking up. So we'll try to get you back on.
Look up the last president. The book about the last president.
Okay, I'll
And,
bring The Last President,
foreshadowing.
Ingersoll Lockwood. That's probably
Yeah,
the
yeah,
earliest example of foreshadowing for what we're seeing right now.
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the call. Unfortunately, we kind of had a technical error there, but otherwise, fantastic call. Appreciate it very much. A lot of great comments. Diana South said the crowd was too small to be authentic. Yeah, that is the smallest Trump crowd I've ever seen. And I went to one Trump rally, and it was overflowing. This was a small, small crowd, very unbelievable. But anyway, a caller brought up many great points, and because yeah, the mainstream media true believer does not have the frame of reference to understand what they're seeing. If it looks fake, but it's treated as real, the cognitive dissonance sets in, and their words are staged, hoax, that don't go far enough. When you say it's a hoax, are you saying a rogue group of media tricked everybody? No, we're talking about a hoax from the top down. These are operations that are necessarily involving politicians, government. I mean, it's huge. The PSYOP entertainment industry is the only industry. Entertainment is a subset of the mind control. The PSYOP political theater, same thing. All these characters, these like Batman villains, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, these are all just actors for all intents and purposes. Do they have any real power? No, just the power to clickbait you and feed you propaganda. Okay, we're talking about foreshadowing. Captain America Brave New World trailer features Harrison Ford, whose birthday is 7/13. It's a president who survives an assassination attempt in a theater, which, again, Abe Lincoln. Speaking of Abe, I mentioned Super Bowl 55 and 57. The Weeknd performed in Super Bowl 55. He had a head wound. Super Bowl 57 had Brock Purdy, who was compared to Lee Harvey Oswald. Weeknd's name is Abel, like Cain and Abel, or Abe L, like Abe Lincoln. So these are instances that we've noted before. The Captain America Brave New World, Captain America has a shield, and I've noticed a lot of use of the word shield referring to the individual that was killed at the shooting who was shielding people. And here again, we have Captain America shielding the president, saving him here. The Boys Season 4, Episode 8 was called Assassination Run, and the character Homelander, who's based on Trump, Season 4, Episode 8, there's that 4.8 code, like the 4.8 magnitude earthquake that hit near Trump's golf course. This number 4.8 and 8.4 are highly significant in this narrative. It's significant, too, that Obama's birthday is 8.4, which pertains to, of course, as we've been discussing, Obama's role in the Trump head wound scenario. Like it's his machination. And that's why A Man in Full has a Trump-like mayor that brings down the Trump character. That's why Leave the World Behind has the references to the JFK assassination. But anyway, here you have it, his bloody face. So this is the Trump character, and he's got blood on his face. And it's called Assassination Run. Now, it wasn't his assassination, but someone else's, but similar themes. Here's a big one. Photographer Doug Mills photographed the 9/11 whispering in Bush's ear, also photographed the bullet whizzing by Trump's ear. You see the common theme? The ear. And there's a number of meanings we talked about the other day, but for the most part, I want to point out that you have a 9/11 and a presidential assassination connection, or a politician assassination connection. So the 9/11 is also evident on Trump's hat, the 4547, which gives you 9/11. And then this is comparable to Richard Drew, an AP photographer who photographed RFK as he fell to his death in 1968, and 33 years later photographed the 9/11 falling man. A photograph which was purchased by Elton John, Rocket Man. Kind of a side story that Elton John's into snuff. But the connection there is Richard Drew photographs an assassination and a 9/11 event. So you see the connection between these photographers and the overlapping parallel situations. And there was someone else. I don't have the name off the top of my head, but I don't have them listed here. I had it the other night. Who photographed the shoe being thrown at George Bush, and he also had a photo of the iconic photo of Trump with the flag over his head, the Braveheart scene / Marine War Memorial Monument imitation. That dramatic photo was shot by the same guy who shot George Bush getting a shoe thrown at him. Then we have the Atlantic, number 10, the Atlantic with the clipped ear. Colin Rugg pointed out, Just in, Trump confirms a chunk of his ear is gone. And I pointed this out to say, because like Counterattack said, there's no way this was staged. Maybe it's an inside job, but it's not staged. I'm like, you sure about that? This is evidence of stagery. And it's too pointed. It's too voluminous to say it's the result of eerie coincidences or a supercomputer or the universe somehow um, manipulating events to communicate messages. All kinds of mystified explanations for predictive programming need to go because we know the facts of how it works. It's an advanced form of propaganda that combines the techniques of marketing, subconscious influence, and PR stunts. This is a public relations magic trick. And the magic show is being conducted on the world stage 24/7. So to look at this clipped ear in the Atlantic, which also is not the only instance of the Atlantic being used in such an event. And this creates a spin off conspiracy theory, because look who owns the Atlantic: the Soros family. Alex Soros, who's getting married to Uma Abedin, the ex lover of Hillary Clinton slash wife of Anthony Weinergate. So it's a very small group of people here. And my point being, too, that the predictive programming has political import and significance, and it's always predicting fake events. If there was anything more than man manipulating man with media, it wouldn't merely be foreshadowing psyops. It'd be foreshadowing real things. But no, the world stage is a worldview that we all internalize, and it's totally manipulated. Okay, number 11. Thine Ears Shall Bleed, a movie released on 7/9. Quite the title, disgusting looking movie poster, even Trump colored hair on the head here. Don't believe everything you hear, it says. That's cryptic. That's a joke. I think it's an inside joke. I added a few more. His Truth Social avatar looks like the Braveheart face, and of course, they reenacted the Braveheart cover, the movie cover, in that scene, and the flag over his head had the blue on the top left, just like here. It perfectly aligns. You see the 9 made with the blue and one of the red stripes. It has 9 stars in it, and the 11, 2 red stripes. So there's a 9/11 on his face, just like there's a 9/11 on his head when he wears the hat. And the blue is where he got his head wound, as we were predicting. We were 100% expecting this. Here's another one. Snoop Dogg shooting Trump as a clown. We've all seen this. This is just 11 of 10,000. 11 of 10,000 references to this individual, to this personage, to this character on the world stage. And to me, the most fascinating aspect is the Robert De Niro connection, because, look, this is how we know, too, that we're right. Why would we be looking at Machete, a crappy movie from 2010? Who had time to watch that between Trump's head wound and now? The only reason it came up is we were looking at Robert De Niro as not just a Trump deranged lib ranting outside the courthouse, but that his presence there had symbolic meaning. He plays the young godfather. He plays the presidential assassin, the would-be assassin of a Senator Travis Bickle, who inspired John Hinckley Jr. He played Frank Murray in the Joker movie based on Taxi Driver, who gets his head shot. So we're looking at these connections. And then we notice, okay, he's shot at in this other scene. So we already noted it. We're like, look, he gets shot at while giving this anti-immigrant speech. And we didn't know then, when we first noticed these Robert De Niro connections, that Trump was going to be shot at while giving an anti-immigrant talking point. So we were looking for predictive programming, and we found it because we knew it would be there, because we are reverse engineering their narratives. And we have made the connection between the celebrities on the world stage in the news and the movies, and how it's perfectly integrated. And De Niro being there demonstrated what we have been pointing out for some time. And I also think there's a lot of significance to Alec Baldwin, who plays a Trump character, having his charges dropped as Trump is exonerated for the Mar-a-Lago raid docs thing. So there's a lot of things where we're seeing they parallel what's on the big screen with what we see on the news. and they merge these things because it's one and the same. It's a unified field. Let me catch up on some comments. Okay, let's see. Tom Waxbottle Jones says 17 is a chapter in Revelation. The Who re-enters 17 is the letter Q. I would need some clarification, but I've heard many people say that Trump's slogan, "the best is yet to come," is really a reference to "the beast is yet to come." And the beast is Mr. Headwound. And many of them believed it would be JFK coming back. But now I'm thinking, no, Trump is now the beast. And speaking of the beast of the sea, this all ties into the nuke theory, the destroyer. So it adds on to that. Trump as the destroyer, as the beast, the Antichrist stuff, and of course QAnon worships him. So they're actually worshiping the beast with his miraculous head wound. In fact, I had this meme that I made months ago, actually a year ago. I made this meme last year on 11/22, and it was. Let's see if I can pull it up. I have so many. It had Jim Caviezel as Christ on the cross with Kennedy's face on it. And it had some MAGA soy jacks with MAGA hats pointing at him, saying something about, or reciting the Revelation verse that the beast has come. And I was just making the point that they were going to Dealey Plaza to worship the beast. And they're so deceived. It's hilarious. And here they are, worshiping Trump. And again, I had to point this out. This is one of my favorite examples of predictive programming. I neglected to mention this one. The Trump Signature 45 whiskey glass. For someone who doesn't believe in drinking, a teetotaler, why would he put his signature on a shot glass? There's a pun here. You can also get his mug shot on a glass. His mug got shot. So here you have Trump with a live, not live, but a literal, real bullet. Like, very strange. They were selling this for years. In fact, they sell this at his whiskey bar. I think it's strange. If you did one of these for JFK, people would find it offensive. Or a Lincoln one with a bullet in the back of it. I mean, what are they thinking? Okay, moving on. We have 5 more minutes. I want to say thanks to the callers. Appreciate the insights and, of course, the additional information and perspectives. And I'm always interested to see what people in people's circles think about this stuff. We talked about Oppenheimer being the code name of the hitman brother of the Nolans. And when they Oppenheimer Seattle, you have to give credit to Christopher Nolan, and possibly both of them. Because what follows the nuke? Fallout. And fallout will be the next reason for the lockdowns. I have plenty of predictive look, now that we know that we're right, and we can accurately ascertain what's to come using this as a predictive model, I have a list of things that you can start looking out for. Here's some world stage spoiler alerts. There's going to be lockdowns because of fallout. That's pretty much a guarantee. There's going to be some kind of blackout. It may be limited, but it's going to result in an internet lockdown for mind viruses. So everything we went through in 2020 in our commons, in the air that we share when we interact in public, how they regulated that, it's going to happen in cyberspace, which is another commons. And there may even be something that ties into space junk regulation and also controlling that. It's all correlated. Inner space, outer space, circulation, low Earth orbit. It's all part of the mind war because the space program has always been about worldview and mind control. And outer space is a metaphor for the space between your ears. We've unpacked this before, but again, using it as a model, the nuke's not going to be metaphorical. Trump's head wound was literal. They're going to simulate a nuke. And they're going to use a lockdown situation physically and also online quarantine. Because again, mind viruses and mind junk. Dinah South says, how does the length of Trump's hair by his ears keep changing over the past few photos? Plain Decoded says eerie coincidence. Yeah, ear, E-A-R-I-E. Ollie Goering says med beds can grow the missing chunk of Donald's ear. Yeah, I've heard them say that JFK still looks 46 because of med beds. All right, moving on. So many great comments here. And look, one more point here. And I brought this up the other night. There were two movies, two Frank Sinatra films that predicted the JFK assassination, and I think he wanted one of them to be pulled. One of them was called Suddenly, a 1954 film, and the other one, of course, The Manchurian Candidate. And these are movies that prime people for the assassination. And on the day, and you can find video of it, the news commentators, and this is 11/22/63, were talking about how previous assassinations had been enabled by a failure of security. And what happened the other day? You had the Three Stooges, the comically obvious, quote, DEI hires, which is a mischaracterization of what DEI is, but the right lives, they always talk about this. And Coulter calls it die. That the DEI is going to kill us, whether it's planes falling or now Trump. And I don't think that this is real. Like, in other words, everything you saw was rehearsed and they acted that way to create this narrative. One, to create the narrative that this was allowed to happen and the shooter was a patsy. And then two, that it could just be blamed on negligence, malfeasance, and irresponsible decisions in hiring. So they've made it possible for everybody to choose their own interpretation of why it happened, choose their own scapegoat. And I often describe, it's Axiom 47, the bifurcated psyops. If there's an event that you can interpret one way or the complete opposite depending on your political predilection, then it's not real. Reality doesn't care about your political opinions. But yet, the surreality of the world stage does. It's responsive to it. Like, I believe the world's ending, but I'm a liberal, so it's caused by Republicans and big oil. Well, I believe the world's ending, but I'm MAGA fringe, so it's probably because of Bill Gates. He's going to block out the sun while the chemtrails kill all the crops. So in both examples, you agree the world's ending, but one blames government, the other blames the private sector. Okay, 17 is the chapter in Revelation where the whore enters. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't get to this part, and I wanted to with the last caller. So the MAGA hat is scarlet. The scarlet hat and MAGA, Make America Great Again. And if we look at Revelation 17, just look at the characterization. If we look at the story of I say story, the myth, the historical event, whatever you want to believe. Uh, you have the woman clothed in purple and scarlet. On her forehead was written a name, Babylon the Great. And it goes on to say Babylon is fallen. So America, make America great again. America needs to be made great again because it fell, because it's fallen. And so you could replace America with Babylon. Make Babylon great again. The color is scarlet, and it's worn across the brow. It also describes the whore of Babylon as a sorceress, and another aspect to the word maga is that it's the feminine of wizard or magus. So it's a basically Babylon the Great, mother of horrors, of earth's abominations. It goes on to talk about the world being drunk on her medications, her pharmaceuticals, whatever she's pouring out of her cup, and that would likely be symbolically the pokey, the needle. But the MAGA hat is, if you ask me, it's a Whore of Babylon symbol. And then 616 says Tom Wax Bottles. 616 is the other number I found linked or implied to be the mark of the beast, and he kicked off his campaign on 6/16/2015. Well, check this out. The number 4,547. So on Trump's hat, you have 4547, which you add them and you get the 911, which we've talked about before. But the number 4547 is the 616th prime number. And I believe this was pointed out by Jurassic Liars, perhaps. But yeah, the 616th prime is 4547, and 616 apparently is another or an alternate number of the beast. 616 is a natural number following 650. Oh, here it is. A fragment of Papyrus 115 gives the number 616 out of Rev 1318. So anyway, you have a lot of symbolism encoded into the hat, into someone who was pre-scripted to have an Antichrist head wound. So just going back to what the caller had and I were talking about, that yes, there is a biblical layer to this story. Absolutely. Did we get through all of my top 11 picks? I believe so. There's certainly many, many more. In fact, there's probably 10,000. And this all reiterates, I think it reinforces our perspective that, yeah, we're looking at a manipulated worldview done through the mechanism of entertainment, which is really all propaganda. And it's part of a metascript where they tell the story in broad strokes, and anything that operates within that fictional universe gets a pass. Not everything, not every filmmaker is consciously feeding the zeitgeist with the same symbolism, but a lot of them do just by imitation. But the big movies, the big productions, the things that everybody see are the things to pay attention to. So you look at these popular movies, Harrison Ford in a trailer being shot at, in a trailer released just as Trump's being shot at, with multiple connections. Multiple connections. That's what we coined the term concurrent programming for, to explain the stuff that happens real time. Okay, I do have to leave. We'll continue tomorrow. We'll have a lot more time. Thanks to the callers, thanks to the commenters, and you can call at any time and leave a voicemail for on-air play. That's 505 510 4226. And if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, it's free, or you can join Patreon for $5 a month if you want to support the channel, and you will get archives sent to your inbox. I send links to all the different platforms. You can get it on all of the podcast platforms, by the way. Speaking of which, I'm suing Spotify. After I get a trial date set against Google YouTube, I'm suing Spotify for the same thing. We have some developments on that as far as the IPS versus Google YouTube thing going. And it's ongoing, and it's going to be not delayed, but this is just their system. It's not like it's being delayed for any particular reason, but we don't have a case management meeting until Halloween. So it was supposed to be next week, but it's going to be Halloween, which just gives me time to build my case, because when I go to that case management meeting, I want a laundry list of documents that I'm going to subpoena, of individuals we want to get testimony from. So I'm going to create a monster of a case out of it if they don't settle before. So it's a win-win situation. I would love for this to go to trial. We could open a number of cans of worms, and the other defendant is going to be doxxed in the discovery process of Hunter Biden versus Garrett Ziegler very soon anyway. So everything's working out in our favor. But anyway, thanks everyone. Appreciate the calls as always. And again, leave voicemails if you want to, and I'll be playing those live. This is Chief Crow, Auto Hoax, or GTFO. I'll put a link below. Again, sign up for the newsletter. You don't want to miss the next few days.